in one. So you explained it and then somebody would say, oh, wait a minute, can we do this? Or what about that? It's not, why would it be disciplinary?
So if all of a sudden I cut library hours, I think that was something somebody had brought up, or decided, to close on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, something like that. I wouldn't be able, number one, I wouldn't be able to do that just because it wouldn't be an emergency situation. But if I were to say the library is going to be closed for an extended amount of time, but it not be in an emergency situation, that would be something that would most likely result in disciplinary action, if I'm not mistaken.
That's according to OLS, or that's according
Oh,
to.
no, personnel policy manual.
Oh, okay.
I think we have a lot of things going on here because I keep like going back to the conversation. I keep going back to the conversation that we had. It was like a few months ago, and we authorized. What is it that we authorized, Catherine? We authorized about as long as the chair of the board was told it would go to the full board for a vote later.
Yes, and I think that's where it was key, us having the information in the March vote about the director being in consultation with the chair and the vice chair. So I think that's very, very important.
Where did we put that language?
I don't have the minutes, unfortunately.
Okay.
So
if only the secretary were here.
Let me see what I sent you though, because I know I sent you the actual text.
Okay. I have to go to another window for that.
So Kim, is your thought is that we should have that language in this recommended wording in the job description?
Right. I don't see if it's already somewhere else, like, either should we be putting it in the job description, or should it just suffice that it exists somewhere else in our policies?
So I copy and pasted the text to the chat, and I can read it.
Please read it. It just popped up for a second, but now it's gone again.
Okay, so it's C. Ryan made the motion, quote, authorizing the director after consultation with the chair or vice chair, so it's one or the other, to make all necessary decisions related to library staff and operations for as long as the Rhode Island Department of Health recommends public libraries remain closed. The board will be notified of planned changes in operations, and any board member will have the option to call for a meeting before changes are implemented. Kay Sutherland seconded, and motion passes 6-0.
Kathy, in case you didn't know, if you click on chat, it'll come up.
Oh, okay.
On the screen, so you don't have to remember it all.
Good. There it is. I see it. Kim, I think you're right that we have this language, and I'm reading the director's recommendation here. Kim, what are your thoughts on how this from the March meeting should be incorporated?
I mean, not as a whole, because what we wrote in March, what was voted on, was specific to it was specific to basically the Department of Health recommendations.
But it does seem as though the functions laid out in that, how that should work,
right,
would dovetail with what we're trying to accomplish right now.
Right.
So perhaps we could take the first sentence and say, in the event of an emergency, the board authorizes the director after consultation with the chair or vice chair to make all necessary decisions related to library staff and operations. And then add in some part about the amount of time. And then we could keep the second sentence, because if we wanted other board members to be involved in that decision, that would be important.
Right.
Well, I guess the other thing is, if we're talking about, we're going, okay, and the recommendation that we made before, we're going specific if it says, as long as the Rhode Island Department of Health recommends it.
Yeah, so I would
And
take
that's-
that part
So
out.
eliminate that part. Yeah.
Because you're talking about, you'd rather go with the OLIS, right?
Yeah, and you know, OLIS has standards, so I wouldn't necessarily be able to close the library for, you know, however long I wanted to, because we have those minimum standards that we have
Yep.
to fulfill.
What I was thinking, I just, all of a sudden it just jumped. I mean, you can't think of everything, but all of a sudden it jumped out at me that it might not, we were reacting to the COVID emergency,
Mhm.
but it might not be a Department of Health. It might be a DPW. It might be a fire. It might be police. It might be something else.
Right.
So that's why if we go, I'm assuming we want to make it more general. Is that correct?
I would think so. If we're going to put it in the job description.
Yeah.
Right.
So then we don't need that Department of Health, correct?
No.
But we do need the OLIS.
Yeah. I'm putting together a draft right now that I can share in a moment.
Okay.
Okay.
I figured that would be easier so everybody could see it.
That's
Yeah.
great. Thank
Great.
you.
It'll just take me a minute. Okay. All right, so let's see. That back up. And I can share my screen. Oh, you disabled it.
Let's see. Oh, I think I did.
You can't fix it.
It is grayed out on my screen, so let me just go see. I cannot.
Kim, did you just type it up somewhere?
Yeah, I can copy and paste it into the chat.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
And I will take it out of the chat and I'll share my screen with it so that you can all see it in larger text. Okay. Can you see that?
Yeah, but I like it better in the text because we got both of them in the text.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, in the chat.
All right. Stop share.
And actually, I would do the same thing I did before too, is I would change that in the event of an emergency situation. I would put that in the front again. Should have done it when I typed it.
Oh, right, okay. In the event of an emergency situation.
And I like that emergency services because, you know, that could mean fire, that could mean.
Right, yeah, that's what Chris was saying. So that's why I just
Could
tacked that
mean
on there for your
propane.
consideration.
Kim, I think this is very elegant. It's
Well, thank
simple
you.
and clear, and you know, it covers a multitude of things without being too specific or too broad. I think it's excellent.
Okay. Do we need anything else with it about board votes and whatnot?
Well, I think that would take the place of number 1 here on the director's recommended wording, and then go on with 2 and 3.
Okay.
So again, you said at the beginning, it's in the event of an emergency situation, right?
Yes.
Okay, the Board of Trustees, so Kathy, so what were you saying? So that would be number 1?
I think so.
And then number 2?
I don't think we've decided exactly what wording we feel comfortable with for number 2, but
No.
basically the temporary authorization via full board vote, whether we go for reauthorization or ratification or whatever. And then number 3, the director will provide a full description of the emergency actions that were taken at the next full board meeting.
So the rest of the language that's in that March 26th meeting directly says that. It says, the board will be notified of planned changes in operations, and any board member will have the option to call for a meeting before the changes are implemented.
Okay.
So if we tweaked that a little bit.
Actually, if that could actually because somewhere, I mean, you could make that part, that second, if you want to do it as a second sentence, the way Catherine has done it, or
Right.
not. But I think the other one was, so the third one.
However, for that second one though, Kathy, it wasn't Kathy, I'm sorry.
You got 2 Kathys and a Chris.
Kathy. Chris.
Okay.
I'm so tired. I was still making parent phone calls before I got online. The board will be notified of planned changes in operations, and any board member will have the option to call for a meeting before the changes are implemented. That part about calling for a meeting does not apply to this because it's an emergency.
Okay.
Well, it applied before,
Wait,
right? Did anybody call for an emergency? Did we have to have anybody, when you sent those little notices out? Nobody called,
Nobody called for one.
right? Because I still think that's, you know, I just think a lot can happen in a month. And I like that. I mean, it's an option. It's flexible, and people are not going to misuse it, I don't think. But, you know, it's like we're trying to figure out what's going to happen in the future. I don't really know, but I think that second sentence could still stay there.
okay.
But because I also think then the library director will provide a full description of the emergency actions that were taken. And the board will reauthorize the authority as needed. No, that's what reauthorize authorities. Reauthorize what? Reauthorize something as needed. But I mean, we can't just keep, I mean, it sounds like it's backwards. We're gonna reauthorize it and then you're gonna tell us the description. So it's like, you gotta say that, the beginning one is like, okay, that's what we're gonna go with OLIS. And then it's gonna be, as long as it's not burdensome, and like I said, if you can do it like once a month, or once a week, if you need to. You might not need to do it. You might only be twice, every 2 weeks, but if you just do those little blips that you have been doing, so we know what's going on. If anybody has an issue, they can ask, call you for information, or just, because if it's just information, I don't think you need an emergency meeting, right? But then just like what you
No.
did in this last meeting, you gave full descriptions of it. And then once the full descriptions, the board can reauthorize. I'm struggling. I'm trying to figure out what word we could use, but after, no, for the subsequent meetings, the library director will provide a full description of the emergency actions that were taken, and the board will reauthorize in a subsequent vote. But I think I used subsequent twice. But anyhow, do you see what I mean?
So something like for the board will, reconsider whether or not the action still needs to remain, or just like.
I wouldn't say that, because I would just say reauthorize it as needed,
Right.
which is what you just said, but it's just using 3 words.
Okay.
But so because you can't reauthorize and then you tell us what you did.
Mhm.
So it's like I'm just trying to condense those things, if that's and try to make it more as general as we can without being crazy about it. I just think as soon as we put this in, we're going to have, oh, I know what's going to happen. We're having major hurricanes. I don't know if you heard about that. Did you guys hear about that?
No.
Don't open your eyes like that. You haven't heard that?
No.
Oh my God,
Before or after the locusts?
yeah, that's right. You go back to the Bible. What have we done wrong here? Anyhow, so that's another one I just thought of. It's like, yeah, a major hurricane, that would do it. And that's supposed to come down the road in the fall. So.
Okay,
but,
let me,
yeah.
This is with the second sentence.
Oh, right, okay. I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with that.
And then the last one will be the library director will provide a full description of the emergency actions, and the board will reauthorize her authority in the subsequent. No. The library director will provide a full description of the emergency actions in the subsequent full board meetings.
All right.
And the board will reauthorize, so that the board, will provide a full description of the emergency actions that were taken. And the board will reauthorize the authority at the subsequent board meetings.
And the board will reauthorize, say that again?
Board will reauthorize the, I don't know how you do it in the rest, his or her authority. No, that's not it.
Directors of.
The director's authority.
Or that authority.
That authority, yeah.
Okay.
Was the stated authority, because otherwise someone's going to say, what does that mean?
That stated authority.
The stated authority at subsequent, at the next full board meeting. Because won't that cover it for more than one meeting?
Oh. Yeah, that makes sense.
Catherine, does that Does that feel okay to you?
So here's, I'll pop that one in there too.
Okay. I guess what I'm trying to do is trying to protect you, but at the same time, not crimp your style. So would that work? No, really, because you can't, but you gotta, at the same time, you gotta make sure that you're protected.
Yes, and I think it's this is a good level of checks and balances because there can still be action made that will, help our patrons and our
Yep.
community and the library staff and also the building here, et cetera. But also there has to be some sort of follow-up for that. So that's great.
And I guess the thing is, if it doesn't work, if something comes up and you're like, okay, this didn't work, as long as you feel comfortable to let the board know, it's okay. Here's a problem.
Absolutely.
I don't like the word must provide. That sounds, I would just say will provide.
Okey doke.
It must sound
We're
so.
being,
Huh?
we're being too authoritarian.
That's exactly what it sounds like to me, because it's like, will provide a full description of the emergency actions that were taken, and the board will authorize that stated authority at the next full board meeting. That doesn't sound right. Does that sound right to you? Let's provide a full description that were taken, and the board will reauthorize the stated authority.
Said stated authority.
That sounds okay?
We could change it to said stated authority.
So what? The board will reauthorize. Reauthorize. All right, that's too much. Once I get going at this, okay, that's it. Too much. It's like it sounds good if nobody's jumped it and nobody just jumping up, then it's okay, I guess. Unless somebody else
It
looks
works
at it.
for me.
Huh? Okay, unless somebody else looks at it and goes, "Oh." So, but I'm all right.
What this committee will do is recommend this language to the board at our next board meeting, and the whole board will vote
Okay.
to approve it and add it to the job description. So we will have another crack at letting other people look at this before it becomes official.
Okay. And I haven't seen the whole thing, I have still having trouble downloading it. Is there an obvious place to put it? I mean, Catherine, you said something.
Do you want me to do a PDF for you?
I'm gonna send the file to you guys right now.
What file?
Oh, location. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I was confused. I thought you meant the personnel policy manual, which I can still send you.
No, I meant the location of where you had suggested putting it in other related duties.
I did.
Oh yeah.
I thought that that might be the best spot just because we could add certain lines into like personnel or fiscal responsibility, something like that. But I think that gets too cumbersome. And I even think if we were to put it in the first section, which is the, it says library services, I don't think it necessarily covers, I think it extends beyond just library services is what I'm trying to say.
Should it be in its own section?
The other related action, what?
Or under board/director relationship, that might also be another area it could be in.
I haven't seen it, so I don't feel, no opinion.
Kim, do you have a strong feeling?
I was just thinking that maybe it should be its own section since it's so different from anything else.
Honestly, I think it is best either as a subsection of other related duties or as its own section or in board related duties, board relations. It just shouldn't be spread between here, there, and everywhere.
Right.
I'm not sure board relations. I would probably go with other related duties. But I'm not against its own section. So weigh in, people.
I'm okay with it now just because by definition, you're not going to have an emergency all the time. Because if you do, it's not going to be an emergency anymore. It's going
So
to
Kim, how strongly do you,
that's all.
There's a section called the new normal.
Yeah, right.
so Kim, do you feel strongly that it should be its own section?
I'm not sure because I don't know, like, are there other things that could eventually find their way into that if we had an extra section for that? Or is it just, I don't know. Other related duties seems like, oh, we didn't know where to put it, so we'll put it there. But if it's an emergency situation, I think it's important enough to have its own section.
I have no problem with
That's a
that.
point. That's a good point too.
We could ask the board to weigh in on that though and see what they think.
Yeah.
Some more opinions on that.
Okay, so we will go with the language that we have agreed on today. And the personnel committee will make a recommendation to the board that we approve this language, and we'll ask for discussion as to whether it should go in other related duties or we should create a subsection of the director job description specifically for this. Yes?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. And Catherine, before we go, can you try to put that in a PDF for me? And at some point, I'm not going to look at it right after this meeting, believe me. But if you can, because I don't know what it is that's doing it, that I'm having trouble downloading it.
Is it my job description,
No, it was the whole thing.
the personnel policy manual?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And I realized I should probably send one that doesn't have the red on it from where it was edited about a year ago. I'll send like the final version, that all stuff.
Okay, because the red won't mean anything to me anyhow, because it was done. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, that would be good,
Nice.
because I couldn't find one that did not have the red.
Okay.
in
I'm gonna
my
have to look
files.
for it in my files too, just so I make sure I give you the right version.
That would be great.
Okay.
And when Chris and I were talking earlier today, she never received the trustee bylaws or the personnel policy manual, which made me wonder if we had ever given it to Sanford as well. So when you nail all this down, could you send copies to Sanford as well, just to make sure he has it in his records?
Absolutely, yes.
You know, I looked through everything. If I did get it, I mean, I don't know who would have given it to me. But if I did get that information, can you let me know and I'll go through everything again? But I couldn't find it anyhow. Do you remember giving it to me? Who would do it? Who would give it to me?
It should have been me.
Well, did you?
So
Do you remember?
I do not.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so if there's nothing else and we have accomplished our agenda item, then I move that we adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank
you
you.
too.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.